Otherwise,
Good to go?
$10 every 10 minutes.
So $1 on that.
เข้าใจว่าจะสีทำเลย
All right, guys, we're gonna start now. This is Wendy Wheeler, and she's the R&D manager for HP, and she's our speaker today. So can we give her a round of applause? So my name is Wendy Wheeler. I wear many hats. I am the R&D section manager for network automation tools at HP. I do fourth level support for that and R&D for the software development for network automation. In addition to that, I am the sustainability or eco advocate lead for the virtual team worldwide. It's an organization of basically volunteers within HP that do environmental work. We have about 10,000 members to our team and worldwide in 32 different locations. I'm also a family manager, mother, wife, friend, all those things. And it's important as you go through your career to keep that balance in mind and always have it on your job list, because oftentimes when your life is not in balance, these are the things that kind of screw you up in life. I'm also an avid hiker. I volunteer for East Bay Regional Parks and I'm an ambassador for them. And when I say I'm a hiker, we'll go more into that later. I think when you have passions in life, like you guys will in starting businesses, it's important to do it to your most and best in everything that you do. In addition to that, I'm an adjunct professor at Merritt College and a volunteer when I'm not teaching there in sustainability and basically in the environmental program. Environmental issues are really one of my passions, in addition to hiking, and my development work keeps me living in my nice house. All right. So the original slide basically was a precursor to this. In life, every day you wake up with 86,400 seconds to spend. And how you spend that time is what makes you successful in your life. And not wasting time is a key to success. It's so important to think about it in these terms, because I think a lot of that time people are rushing around trying to make things happen, but they don't really think about what in their life they want to accomplish. And at any time, your life could end, right? And you want to make sure that you've made the most of it. All of you sitting in this room are doing amazing things with your life and will. So make sure that what you do has purpose in the time that you spend. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about time. Cognitive load. Does everybody know 9/11 in here? Yeah, okay. I'm going to talk about this in terms of something that happened to me during 9/11. I was working at Bank of America. I was in charge of the Router Network Operations Group, managing Bank of America's network. 35,000 network devices. On that day, Twin Towers came down. Our trading floor was in that building. It took us, 7, 8 months, 9 months to build that trading floor from everything. Laptops, network equipment, all of that. Now that's a lot of time, a lot of planning. We were told, we no longer have this data center anymore. You have 5 days to build a new one. Now, why is this interesting? We built that data center in 5 days, using all the same resources, all the same people, and we had to redesign the whole thing. And how did it happen? Think about it. We had a higher purpose. We had been attacked by terrorists. We needed to do something quickly. When things have to be done quickly, what gets eliminated? Does anyone know? Waste. Processes get thrown, metrics get thrown, escalations, we don't care if you get escalated on, make it happen. Now, in addition to this, you have to be very creative. What wasn't happening during 9/11? We couldn't fly anywhere. We couldn't fly equipment into the sites. So what do? You rent trucks. Where's our closest equipment? Oh, none of the vendors are providing equipment right now because they're providing equipment for all of this stuff that's happening in 9/11. So we had to get equipment from all over the US, drive it in U-Hauls. we had to get people in because the staff that we had, some of them we didn't know where they were, right? Bringing staff in. In addition to that, we're doing all of the triage work that has to be done to finding all the staff. And thank God for us, we found all of our staff. And they helped us rebuild trading floor in 5 days in New Jersey. Now, why am I telling this story? The reason I'm telling it is because a lot of the times as you start businesses, it's very easy when you're small to do things quickly because you don't have the rules. You don't have that. But as you scale up, the tendency is to add all of this overhead. As you run into problems, you add more things, metrics, escalation processes, more management. Your teams get bigger. You know, I think one of the rules that what I do on my team is keep the teams small. You may have lots of teams working with you, but there's kind of a general rule in the industry that anything more than you can be fed with 2 pizzas is too many people to have on a team. And how many people is that? 5 to 8, something like that, depending on how hungry you are. But really, that's a good amount of team because you can be very productive. And it's very easy to find out in team sizes that are small when things are not going or who's not pulling their weight, you know, that kind of stuff. Eliminate multitasking. It doesn't work. We always say, oh, I can do everything. You can't. No one multitasks well. All the research says that. But all the time we rethink about it, right? Oh, I can do it. I can have a list of 100 things and get it done. Really focus on the most important things to make your businesses successful. Talk to people and figure out what those things are. I think oftentimes in new businesses, we have a preconceived or a project, a preconceived idea of what it is that people want. And oftentimes we're not accurate, right? And so we're working on all these tasks that we think are most important for our business, for our customers, for ourselves, and we don't validate. So make sure you're not multitasking. Make sure to validate what's on your list. Create incentives for killing load. So on your teams, if people seem to be overworked, look at what people they're working on and making sure that you're not overloading them. Overloaded people are less productive. So for example, on my development team, I have multiple Scrum teams. I have multiple teams working under me. They get 2 weeks worth of work. That's it. And they have to sign up for it and say, yep, I sign up. I will do that work in 2 weeks. And at the end of it, we sit down and review. Did you finish what you said you're going to do? And if you didn't, one, did I know that you weren't going to finish ahead of time, right? Or what were the things that prevented you from being successful? And let's make sure those things don't happen again. You know, that is really what you have to do. And then at the next 2 week cycle, you do it. The people who say, oh, I'm going to make a plan for a year. How many of you have made a plan for a year? I've made a plan for a year, right? You've made plans. And in a year, how many of those plans have changed? Directions change, people change, projects change, money changes, funding changes. Too long. I think you can have a project that's long, but you need to think about the steps in smaller bite-sized pieces so that you can actually make it to the end goal quickly. Does that make sense? All right. The other thing is clear vision and purpose. It was very interesting. I gave my team an assignment. I said, we need to put more content out there in the world, more videos, more customer user things that can make them more productive on our tools. Customers are saying, we bought this Ferrari from you and we've spent millions of dollars, but we're driving it like it's a Pinto. And so they needed more things to help them understand how to use the tool. Gave the assignment, thought it was really clear, right? Seems clear. Month goes by, no content. I said, what's the problem? You know, think clear vision. And everybody says, well, we don't really know how people use our tool. Okay, that's a problem. You know, here we are selling a product that the majority of the development staff has never talked to a customer. Is that a problem? If you guys are going to do code and develop things, don't do this. Talk to customers. So our goal right now is we're meeting with all of our large customers and saying, you know, what is it that you do? What do you want? What is it that our tool doesn't do today? and really letting the developers hear it. I think oftentimes we put people that aren't supposed to be customer facing in a little room and, you know, prevent them. And a lot of times those people don't want to talk to anybody, but you need to force them to get out there and ask the why questions. Why do you need that? You know, sometimes when you talk to people and you say, you know, they say, oh, I need to, you know, download this and do that and do that. And then you ask why, and they said, oh, because I want to generate a report. Well, why didn't you say you wanted to generate a report? You know, we can do that like this, right? So ask the, you know, let people talk and customers talk and provide information, but also make sure that you provide the people that are talking with the vision and the clarity and the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish, and make sure the people you assign the tasks to truly understand their vision, and constantly check with people, right? Do you understand our vision? Do you understand the purpose of this, you know, this project that we're working on? Because you would be surprised often that people don't understand it. And it's the leading reason why people quit their jobs, right? Because they don't feel they have purpose. Now, if you as entrepreneurs hire staff, what's the one thing you want to do with your staff? You want to keep them. If you're, you know, especially high-powered people that, you know, you're like, oh, you are the best person I have on the team. Do I want you to know what your purpose is? Yes, I do. Do I want you to know the vision? Yes, because if you are one of the best people on the team, it's expensive. Everybody says, oh, if you lose him, you can hire a contractor. I can tell you contractors are expensive. Why are they expensive? You need to train them up. They know nothing. They don't really have the same investment as you do as an employee. So, you know, keeping people motivated this way is important. All right, other impacts to productivity. I'll tell you a story about stereotypes. I was in Texas last week in a meeting with a big customer. They are spending millions of dollars with us. And I'm sitting there in a room, 30 people, half of the people are HP employees, half the people are the customer. And one of the guys who's running the meeting got up there and came over to me and he says, I want you to take notes during this meeting. You want me to take notes during this meeting? I'm the highest level manager in the room. Now, why is he coming to me asking me to take notes? Does anybody know why? Think about it.
Notes help you memorize.
No.
If someone takes bad notes, like there's no one to blame because you're the highest ranking manager.
No.
You know what everyone doesn't have work, so you can delegate.
No.
Did he know that you were a manager?
Yeah. And when I said no, oh, go ahead.
On safe time.
No. Now, let me tell you who else was in this room. There were program managers in that room. They're really good at taking notes. There were technical advisory managers that are excellent. That's their only job in life, is to talk to customers and take notes. So after he asked me and I said no, he went over to you. You, another woman in the room, and asked the training manager, can you take notes? Her primary goal in that room was to document all the technical training requirements, but she needed to stay focused on that training goal. So she said no. Went to the next woman in the room. There were only 3 women in the room. Then he ran out of, and that third woman said yes. Now, that third woman had no technical background and wasn't the right choice for that role. But there is often in life, people have preconceived images of people. And it's so important as you start your businesses to really look and find the best qualified person to do the job. The other thing as a woman is I've been in a lot of situations. I'm in a very male-oriented area. I'm in networking. When I started in networking, I went to conferences and 10,000 men and me. So the challenges are that you always are looked at, you know, in this generation, you may think, oh, we're equal, right? But there are these preconceived notions at different age levels. The guy that had this issue was a little bit older than I am. So he just, that's where he went. So, but as entrepreneurs, your businesses will be successful if you really analyze the skill set of everybody sitting in the room with you and understand what skill sets you need to get that task done. And also confirm with the small group of people who wants that role. I have stuff on my plate right now, like as you expand and grow your businesses, You will have so much work on your plate. Well, there are people that are going to be working under you that would kill to have the opportunities to do what you consider to be the worst tasks on the planet. I've often thought, who would want to do this, right? And then I bring it up in a staff meeting and 5 people say, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to do that. And you think, oh my gosh, okay, here, have it. But don't, when you look at your own task lists, make sure that one, the things that you really love are the things that are bubbling up, and you are offloading, especially if you're running your own businesses, you're offloading the things that don't make you spark, right? And you know what that spark is. It's what makes you get up every morning and makes you want to go to work. It makes you want to do your business, and it makes you want to do the things that you love. You wouldn't be sitting in this class if you don't want to start businesses, I'm assuming, right? How many of you want to start your own businesses? Yeah. And why? You want to be your own boss. You want to be able to do things that you love. You want to create something that will make money. There's many reasons why people do these things, but make sure that when you start your business, you're doing the things that you want to do. Talked a little bit about contractors. Contractors take 20% of my staff's resources to onboard a contractor. If I onboard a contractor for a 6-month period and I take a month to ramp that guy up full time, right? Takes a month to ramp him up before he's even productive. And then he starts, and that means I have 5 months, and I'm also sucking up 20% of bandwidth of somebody on my team to continue to mentor and roll them forward. What is the cost of that? Everybody says, oh, we'll just throw a contractor at it. Doesn't often save you money, right? If you can get a contractor for 2 years, yeah, might save you money. And also if you get a lot of contractors, like right now I have a whole pile of them, it can be such an overhead to manage that sometimes it's better not to have them at all. It's something to think about. People just think, oh, throw bodies at it. Bodies cost, always cost. And this is to tie back to the contractors. It takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. So, for example, in my situation, I have an application that we're doing development. How much, if a contractor has 1 month worth of work, that's 160 hours. How much of an expert is that person in anything that we're doing? Yeah, he may be an expert at coding, but he may not be an expert at what we need him to do in the applications. So, and that holds true to anything. So that's why in the beginning I said you want to hold on to employees that get the knowledge, because that's what makes your companies go faster. Your velocity increases the more experience you have on your teams. Any questions about productivity? Is this helpful? Okay. All right. Think big. Everything I do big. I hike. I was on the cover of a magazine last month for my hiking. I'm hiking every trail in the East Bay Regional Parks. I also am an advocate for the East Bay Regional Parks. I'm also a person that is trying to build a 6.2 mile trail from Chabot down to Middle Harbor because we have no connector trails to connect the Bay Trail with the Ridge Trail. Working with a team of people to do that. In life, you have your personal goals, and I often find that people don't stretch themselves. Why did I create this goal for myself? Seemed like fun. I get to see every trail and every park in the East Bay, all 12,000 or 1,200 miles of them. And I get to talk to people. And if I'm going to be an ambassador for East Bay Regional Parks, what's the best way to be an ambassador? Knowing every trail, right? Knowing what the park is up to. So I'm working on it. And in that, I'm going out and talking to people and educating them about the parks. I have a bucket list item. Love to wear the Google backpack. You know what I'm talking about? Map out the trail. I think it's important to have both personal goals and professional goals, and also volunteer. I've connected all 3 of mine, right? I volunteer and do stuff on hiking. I have my bucket list with hikes on it. But in life, if you're not balanced, and my husband would say I'm a little excessive in this area, for he's not a hiker. If you don't have balance for both personal and professional, your life is not complete. You need to find, and maybe you will be totally happy working full time for the rest of your life, but you also, most people aren't. They need something else to kind of give them balance. Do all of you have hobbies today? How many of you have hobbies? Good. Keep them as you get older. All right, customers. I'm going to talk about a project I'm working on right now. It's called Ease to Run. Ease to Run is an executive initiative that one of our executives put in, and they said, we want it to be easier for our customers to utilize our products. That was a goal, right? It's a pretty good one. We want people to be able to use our products more efficiently. And they provided us a list. Here is a list of the things we think that customers want from us. I looked at the list. I said, I've never heard a customer say they wanted these things. Okay. So I went off and I started asking customers, are these the things you want us to work on? I got more and more customers talking Apple, Comcast, big companies. No, these aren't the things we want on the list. And I said, gosh, I wonder where this list came from. And the list had come from pre-sales and sales teams. Those were the things they needed to be able to do more sales. Okay, that's fine. We can do some of those things, right? But when you have a project that you're going to spend lots of resources on, you need to understand who is it that pays your bills at the end of the day. The pre-sales guy, brings in money, right? They sell your product. And if you make it easier for them to enable the sale, that's great. But in the end, if you don't make that person happy, they're not going to continue to buy and promote your product. Out of this Ease to Run project I have, I now meet with 10 of the Fortune 500 companies on a bi-weekly basis to talk to them about their tools. And why do they come? We're talking really powerful people from lots of big companies spend 2 hours a month with me talking. And why do you think they come? Why do you think they waste their time? Or would they waste their time? Anybody?
Because the focus is no longer on what the pre-sale guys want, but rather what customers as a whole want.
Yeah. And it's a very interesting exercise because in there so we start talking about issues and you can tell anger. You know when a customer is angry. Has anybody ever seen an angry customer? Yeah.
I've been an angry customer.
Yeah, you've been an angry customer or have you seen one? And you can tell from the posture, the attitudes, the emails, the emotion in people's voices. There are these big signs that say, woo, 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 stop what you're doing, pay attention. We hit one of those issues about a month ago in one of these meetings. And the intensity level was so hot. And I said, okay, we'll write down everything that you want. And we started documenting and documenting. Documenting is very important. We got 70 issues out of that discussion on one pain point. And I'm looking at this list going, ooh, 70. I don't have the engineering resources to fix 70 things. So I thought about it and I went back to them. I said, do we need all 70? Yes, we need all 70. And I said, okay. So somebody on the team, very smart guy, said, why don't we have them allocate money? Give each of them $100. And I said, okay, we can do that. And we give them rules. For each item you want, you can't spend any less than $20. If this is a really important item for you, you can spend your whole $100. And at the end of the next week, we'll come back and we'll talk about really what your priorities are. And so when we did it, we came down to 3 items that the people really wanted out of 70. And one of the guys from General Motors said to me, he said, I never realized how hard your job was. I didn't know how hard my job was. You have to make these choices every day. I only had to do it for this one problem. So they all turned around and in the discussion where we synced up, one of the customers put all of their $100 on one thing. And when they saw that thing had gotten funded so much, they said, oh, we're going to take some of our money off the table and invest it over here. And I said, that's kind of cheating. But, I let them move their money around. But what it did is in the end, they all agreed that those were the top 3 priorities. And is that easier for me to work with? 3 versus 70? Yeah. And what do they get out of it? They feel like we've listened. They've given us their feedback. And also the other thing in these meetings that we do for them is if there are things that we think we can provide value with right away, we do them quickly and show them, okay, you said this last week, here you go. Here's an answer to your problem. And by doing things in rapid succession, people are more likely to come because they get value out of the meetings. Meetings can be a time suck, but if you provide value, it's very important. The other thing is, next thing on the list, ask why questions. I think oftentimes we don't ask why, we just do. And often you do not know what people really want until you ask them. Prototype fast and fail often. Failure is not a bad thing. I would not be where I am today in my career if I hadn't taken risks, lots of that. And so I advise, no one is ever going to say, oh, you're fired, you messed this up. They're going to say, how come, I know you can do more. And people who do more and feel that fear become more successful. I'll give you a fail fast and often. When I first, I was probably about all of your ages, I'm a little older now. I was just an engineer, like a tools engineer. And I kept going to the senior execs and telling them, you've got these problems, you've got these problems, you've got these problems. And I solving, and putting my head out there, right? Bless you. A lot of people were kind of like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Oh, you're going to get fired. And I kept doing it. And 6 months later, I got offered a job to be the head of network operations for router network operations at Bank of America. I knew nothing about networking. I knew nothing about how to run data center, but I got the opportunity.
What did you keep doing over and over again as a risk?
I just kept putting myself out there, solving problems, showing people value, and fixing things that were very, very broken. And I think a lot of people just say, it's always been broken. You're never going to be able to fix that. It's always those things that people say that never can be done. If you can solve them, people want more of what you do, and it rises your value or your asset to the people who hired you. So, and I have to say that's kind of the reason. I mean, I'm in this current position as a section manager. I was running a tools team before this, but it was point solutions. I was an efficiency kind of expert, and I would go into accounts and things and say, oh gosh, it's taking 10,000 hours to do this. How can we do it faster? And doing very point solutions. And I was pretty good at that. And then somebody said, oh, why don't you try your hat in enterprise software, which is totally different game. But your doors will open no matter what you do in your life. Every job that you have builds up to something else. I started in finance. I'm not a coder. I'm not a network person. I am now, but I wasn't a network person. I didn't do customer service. I think everybody should have a job where you have to work with customers. My daughter works at the cheese shop at Market Hall, and she sells cheese. And she says, oh, I never knew how hard it was to deal with the public. I said, people are so mean, but it's learning those skills early and relating with people that will make you successful. All right, I have a little bit of time. Sustainability equals good business. This is my environmental hat coming out. So let's talk about HP Earth Insight and our collaboration with Conservation International. So we partnered with Conservation International because we wanted an early warning system to figure out if threatened species, if we could protect areas. Now, let's talk about this project a little bit and why do you think HP would do this project for free? We're donating millions of dollars to fund this project.
Cynical side of me says it'd be great PR.
Good reason.
It might get you in with your providers, your supply chain.
Yep.
It's a great way to test out new technology in the field.
That's exactly right. So we have some of the best analytic tools in the business to do data mining. So what we've done is these cameras take millions of pictures, terabytes worth of data. Scientists have to go through all this stuff manually. And what's the lag time if you're doing something manually? A long time. So that species could now be dead, gone, by the time you actually figure out that there's a trend that he's declining. Some marmot or whatever, right? And so, we gathered all this data, and now they're doing an open system so that different research centers can now plug into this. And so it can expand and grow and scale. But what it does is they use HP hardware, HP printers, the analytics tools, and you're showing it's a better story, right? It's not, oh, I'm doing data mining to find out your information on Facebook, right? That's not a good story. You as a person are like, oh gosh, that's so invasive. But this is a good story, right? This is a technology that's doing good for the betterment of society. And in your businesses, you need to think about messages that come off like this, right? In the things that you do. All right. Closed loop process for recycling. So HP recycles cartridges, printer cartridges. It is awesome. Takes toxic chemicals out, takes waste out of our supply chain. But this also costs us money. What would be a reason why you think HP does this? Anybody?
Actually, I think it might save you money in the long run because it's a vertically integrated system.
Yes.
You don't have to take care of supply costs. You can actually minimize that because now you source your own plastic.
Correct. And we also use used bottles as well. So we use stuff that we don't have to buy raw material. What's another reason? What do people do with printer cartridges today to save money? Yeah. What happens if you take the cartridges out of the supply chain and get rid of them? People can't refill them, right? So it serves two purposes. So for everything that you do, you need to think of every aspect of what you're doing, right? Kind of interesting. I think a lot of the times people don't think of processes end to end, right? Wyndham. Wyndham is a data center. Data centers are very costly to cool. And so what they did with this data center is they said, we'll go to Wyndham, and it's on the shores of England. And what does England have? Lots of cold weather, lots of wind. So what they do is they use the cool air to cool the data center. If we look here, how much savings is annually happening because of this decision? These are environmental savings that are huge. And everybody says, oh, why do we want to be sustainable in our business? That's the reason. It saves money. When you can't pull money anywhere out of your business, these are the areas that you can look at to save costs. All right. So on that note, I could talk about a lot of other things, but I think I'm going to, at this point, open it up and ask if you guys have specific things that you would like to know or cover or learn. I have a very wide range of experience, so I can.
So I was kind of brewing these, talking about entrepreneurship, going into business for yourself, that sort of thing. It sounds like that you've been with HP for a while.
Yes.
And I was wondering kind of why you chose to stick with HP during, I can't think of a better word, the lean years.
That's a very good question.
Because my understanding in, adjusting for inflation in 2000, HP was worth around 135 million. By 2012, it was worth 25 million.
And now we're splitting, which is even more hard times.
Yeah. So I mean, we're through kind of all of that. How? Why?
It's a very good question. I was constantly learning. So I didn't really go through my background very much. I started off in finance at Bank of America. After 2.5 years, I realized that finance was incredibly boring and did not want to spend the rest of my life doing that. So I went into an entry-level training program. I begged. all these Cal and MIT students were going into this Bank of America entry-level program, and I said, I want one of those spots. And they said, no, you're not a new college grad, you can't. I said, I want one of those spots. Be aggressive, you ask, be aggressive. I got one of those spots. I'm in a room, I'm not a programmer, I'm with all these Cal and MIT students, I'm clueless. I have grit. So I made it through that, became technical engineer, then a manager, and then I got sold. My Bank of America outsourced to EDS, and I got sold to EDS, and now I'm a consultant, right? So I learned that whole gig, and I moved out of operations because operations was kind of a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week thing. I moved into workflow management and doing programming and development in a different way. And then did 18 months there. And then, I got another gig doing configuration management tools, and I got to work with new different people. And so for me, it wasn't necessarily staying at the company. It was more, I was learning so much. And then after that, I've spent the last 4 years doing enterprise level software and learning agile methodology and all of these skills that if I decide to start my own company or if I decide to move to another organization, I can translate that. I think that as I move forward in my career, the minute I stop learning and I can't find an opportunity to learn, then I would move on. And I have contemplated starting my own businesses and all of that as well. And I've done a lot of planning around that. But it's about your personal goals, right? And also for me, I have an 18-year-old now who's about ready to go to college. So it opens up a whole new avenue for me to have a lot more flexibility in my life as well. I think to do entrepreneurship, I also worked a lot because I wouldn't, you have to work a lot of hours. I think that if I was to go back and to be at your age, I probably would have chose different paths. But I'm not necessarily sure it was the worst decision because I'm doing pretty well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Actually, yeah. So I also come from a non-technical background and beginning to learn to code. So what were I guess what I'm saying is how did you overcome the fact that you didn't have a coding education? What were the barriers you kind of had to hop over?
So I found the things that the coders didn't do well. Coders don't work well with people. I'm a people person. I can gather requirements. I can do the vision. A lot of coders couldn't. I could do the architectural role. As an architect, you don't need to code, right? So I could do the higher level thinking about how we design an application. So those are the ways that I kind of got around my limitation because I couldn't code to save my life. I was not very good at it, I have to say. But it's finding, in every job, there are things that you can do. Find the things you do well.
What do you do with Conservation International?
What do I do with them? So I'm not doing, I actually did a conference where I promoted the technology there, and I have very limited interface with them at this point, but other people at HP are working on that.
Do you feel like you learn these skills once you're at the job, or it's important to learn them in college for the job?
I believe that you don't learn very much in college except for practical knowledge. I think until you're actually on a job trying to get something done, it's kind of hard to explain. We get new coders in from college and the code they work on is nothing like the stuff that we work on, right? Until you get in there and you're said, okay, now you need to find out of a million lines of code this area that you're going to work on. Until you actually do that and have to work in that kind of scale, it's really hard. I think people often say, what is the most valuable thing you can tell somebody? Go get internships, learn and do. You're going to get far more knowledge from actual practical experience, I think. Not that I'm poo-pooing education because I also teach, but I think that there's a kind of a balance there that you have to have. Anybody else?
It's kind of a general question, but I'm really impressed that you're able to juggle so many roles and have so many hats. And
what would you tell someone who says, you're a mother and an avid hiker and you're trying to do all these things with HP? How do you manage all of that, and how would you respond to any doubts from others?
I think, how do I manage it? I'm really good with time management and prioritization. I focus on the most important things for me in my life. And not only for me, but for the company's needs as well. And because I'm razor focused and not distracted, it allows me the time to do the things I want to do. Granted, I work a lot. I have teams in two different, I have a team in India and a team here in the US. So I work night and day. But I also carve out time for the things I need to do. And I also carve out time, like, with my daughter, she's going off to college. I go have coffee with her during the day, those kind of things that you need to figure out ways to make your life balanced. Does that answer your question? Hopefully. It's not easy though. I would say also I have a very, very supportive husband who tells me when I'm out of whack. And we have that sit down conversation. I don't know if you've ever had one of these in a relationship. It's important to have a balancer in your life. If you're a type A personality that likes to do a lot, find someone that's not like you. Yeah.
What's your favorite trail in the East Bay?
Well, that's a loaded question. I always tell people that I don't have a favorite trail. I have a favorite trail for weather. I have a favorite trail for hills. I have water hikes. There's depending on what. Right now, I've been hiking a lot of Coyote Hills because I'm really enjoying the birds, and I really want to see the otters that are there right now. And I see pictures of them on these docks, and I go there and I never see them. So I keep going back in hopes that I will. And my go-to park is because it's close to my house is up in Redwood. Redwood Regional is really nice. And I was up at Tilden and Wildcat Peak this weekend. It's very, very nice. And if you want to know my list of hikes, look at the article in Oakland Magazine because they've got 4 pages on hiking from me. Anybody else?
So I remember you mentioned working with Bank of America earlier, and since you work with HP, is there any opportunity to work with them collaboratively to fund any projects?
I was with them last week. So I partner, they're one of my customers. And so that's another thing in life. I think oftentimes you don't realize how closed your circle is. You will run into the same people over and over again. Remember, don't piss people off. They will come back. They rise from the dead. They're like zombies. So yeah, all the time. I actually have people that worked for me in the past that now are my customers. I've had people that come back and work for me multiple times and now are my customer. That kind of stuff. It's a small world, really.
Like if you're when you're working with a tech guy, then there will be many miscommunications and some arguments. How do you deal with tech guy?
Conflict?
Some conflict. You need to finish the project, and they're saying, for example, it's impossible. You're thinking not doable. I cannot do this. And then how you do?
That's an opportunity, not a conflict. I think that, and I run into this all the time, QA people are really good at telling me that things can't be done in the time frame that I want them. I think everything can be done. It's just a matter of how you work it, right? So instead of saying what can't be done, tell me what you can get done, right? And how can we break it down into small enough pieces that maybe we can give a little bit over here. I think as a team, if you don't have a team that's together, you know what I mean? The type of team I'm talking about. Most powerful teams are those ones that come together and say, how do we get it done? And so if you build that kind of environment on the team and you get rid of the people that aren't like that, that's the key. I hate to say it, laying people out or eliminating problem people that don't work well together. And then as on top of that, the coding aspect, breaking it down to smaller pieces, because that makes it more visual for those naysayers to then see how it's possible and have them come up with the solution themselves, right? People are more likely to buy into something they believe in. Does that help?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
So for example, like you said, you're leading different teams at the same time. So in one of the teams, maybe one person is working on multiple projects at the same time. How would you teach them like how to prioritize different projects?
We don't do that.
You don't do that?
No, multitasking is evil.
Okay.
Keeping people focused is very important.
Okay.
I think oftentimes people take on more projects than they can handle. If you do have to work on more than one project, you allocate a time for each team. So you say you're going to work on this team 50% of the time and you're going to work on this team 50% of the time, and really have clear objectives for what you're going to do. I've never met anybody that does well working on many, many projects at the same time. It's a big time suck. The context switching alone makes it not worth doing. Anybody else?
Do you live in more of a free form model of like saying, hey, this is your project, you figure out how to do it, or do you like to give them like a set task, like a to-do list?
No. So I have a prioritized backlog of high-level things that we want people to do. And we give people the freedom to figure out how to make it happen, because they're more likely to come up with a creative solution than me telling them, I want you to do steps 1 through 5. That never works because it makes people angry. People don't like to be told what to do. They like to be able to think. And in the field I'm in, I hire really expensive resources, right? And they should be creative enough to solve the problem I'm handing to them, especially if it's, it's a code-related problem or something like that.
And then a follow-up to that is, if they aren't successful, so in that kind of model, I feel like there's not as much wiggle room to like fire someone, I guess. Right, because you don't have like a set to-do list. You can be like, oh, they did not perform X, Y, and Z, right? How would you go about like calling that? Like,
So
how you said that people don't pull their weight.
yeah, so how it happens is you only have 2 weeks worth of work, right, in this team. And at the end, as a team, you talk in a retrospective about what worked and didn't, and people will call you out. They'll say, so-and-so didn't get their testing done. You didn't do your coding. Why did that not happen? And people document what were the barriers, and together they solve the problems. And people are very honest in these meetings, because as a team, they're held accountable as a team, right? They don't get recognition as an individual, so people pull up when they see everybody's like pointing at them. Nobody wants to be the, you don't want to be the odd child in the group that's getting all the reprimand, because that doesn't look good for you. So as a group, that's the thing. I think oftentimes we recognize people as individuals, and that doesn't go well for building up a company. If you have a group of 5, if you recognize that group, you're more successful long term, right? Because that group will want to be successful. And as soon as that person starts seeing that they can do things, and also the group dynamic will force the group to find tasks that person can work on. Right? So if they realize that person's really good at documentation, but they're not good at coding, they'll do that. Or, oh, you're a really great project manager. Why weren't we using that skill? Right? Whatever it is. But, also relook at their skill set. Right? And, go ahead. No. The other thing is cultural differences. I don't know if there is a class at Berkeley, but if there is one, if you work in multiple different countries, it is very important to understand how different cultures work. I've worked in 8 countries, and it's a challenge. Okay, are we done?
Oh yeah, no, you can finish up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Or?
All right, thank you so